the Upshot, Ultiworld Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. It's Tuesday, May 6th. I'm Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. As always, Josh, the Champions Cup, the first major of the season, delivering in a big way. A crazy tournament, some super exciting final rounds, some extreme controversy that we will get into today. Just a little kind of everything as we get into the meat of this 2025 season.
You know, that's what we want as fans, right? Is we want the little bit of everything. And it really, like, MPO especially, the shuffling of that leaderboard was unreal. To really not, and just given how hard, and we'll get into this, but the difficulty at the end of that course and the weather conditions with the wind meant that, like, getting in the clubhouse was so critical, and it just, you never knew where the rest of those players were going to end up and if they were going to be able, like, when they were going to break that threshold. And so even though you had players that were 6 holes ahead, it was hard to gauge who really was the favorite, who was in the best position. You know, it did end up being the guy with the most holes to play. Shocking. As is typical, but it didn't feel like it was going to be that way the entire time.
Well, it's so interesting. I remember I was watching that final round and the leaderboard was crazy. You know, you had like 15 players within like 2 shots of the lead. And at the time, you know, there was like discussion about like who is the favorite, right? And I was like, well, it's Isaac, but it's an interesting thing because if you're trailing, you want more holes to play.
Right.
But if you're ahead, you want it to be all over as soon as possible, especially on a course like that ends with the 3 hardest holes on the course in 16, 17, and 18. And like all the way down the stretch, like it was not over until Isaac put it on the island or the peninsula, I guess you should say, on 18. And, you know, obviously, you know, his drive was really, really good. It's very unlikely he's going to make a mistake from there, but there's uncertainty because it's super windy and that's a scary shot. You can go left, right, long, short, and it's all bad.
Yeah. And it also, but it required Isaac to hit. I mean, that upshot, critical moment, difficult to execute, definitely could be screwed up. Hole 17 makes the massive circle 2 putt, right? Huge putt. And one that, you know, elevated, if he airballs that, it could go horribly wrong. Like, Isaac was executing every level of the game through the most difficult stretches of the course. And it's why we, you know, despite the fact that 4 holes before that, we had like 10 guys tied at 20 or 21, we didn't have a playoff because Isaac just executed every single shot down the stretch.
Yeah. I want to get into some stats. I want to talk about what Isaac has done now. Nate Sexton on the broadcast said that there's no question that he is his favorite. Isaac is his favorite for winning the World Championships again in 2025. He said, I'm not going to be fooled when he, you know, rope-a-dopes us by playing bad for the next few weeks before the major, because he is unquestionably the best major competitor right now. When the moment is the biggest, he's showing up the most. And it's hard not to argue otherwise. The guy's won almost half the majors over the last 4 years.
Yeah, it is. And I think the other thing that's funny about that is like Isaac winning Worlds. Have we ever had a three-peat?
Not in a long, long time. I'm sure Climo did it, and Macbeth maybe never did it.
I don't think Macbeth.
I think he won twice in a row a few times, but I don't think.
And Ricky's done twice in a row.
Yep, I don't think I can remember a three-peat since Climo.
It is crazy that we have a guy as young as Isaac Robinson, who Nate Sexton is calling the favorite to essentially make history.
Holding up, Macbeth 4-peated 2012 to 2015.
Oh,
that's the last time it's happened.
Shoot. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we probably should just know that off the top of our head. Then, of course, Climo won however many it was in a row. Was it 9?
Which
1, 2,
we
3,
kind
4,
of
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, 9 from
Climo was
1990 to
going
98.
Yeah.
But those are the only 2 guys who've ever done it. 3-peats, or I should say 3-peats plus.
Esteemed company if Isaac can pull it off.
Oh my gosh!
And the difficulty now is like that's unbelievable.
Isaac becomes the first 2-time Champions Cup winner.
Oh, that's
true.
that's
not exactly like a crazy stat, given that the tournament's only been running for a couple of years, but worth a note.
Yeah.
I want to dig in a little bit into both this weekend and what Isaac was able to do, but just like looking back over the course of his career. Now, it's worth noting, this is one of the lowest rated wins on the Pro Tour or the the majors in a long time. And I'm gonna pull the stat. I gotta hunt down where it got posted. But this was not like an otherworldly performance from Isaac. But what it was ultra consistent, ultra repeatable, and he simply avoided making the big mistakes that other players were making. And, Paul McBeth should have won this tournament after opening up with a 14 under, right? But then he only played 1 down the rest of the tournament.
That's crazy.
After the midway point of round 2, he was terrible.
Yeah,
he was 5 over in the final 2.5 rounds.
Someone said not even the most unhinged McBeth hater would have taken that bet. And they're right. Like they are right.
Yeah, I mean, it's it was a very steady performance from Isaac, and he led the field in fewest OB, and he basically said that his whole game plan in his post-win interview was to just not go OB, and like that was obviously a very good strategy.
Yeah, as
he avoided taking the penalty strokes that plagued everybody else.
And to your point, Charlie, as well, like it's like, oh, duh, just don't go OB. Easy, right? Don't. What a game plan. But I think that there's 2 things that are of note here. Number one is that not going OB, was a more difficult task than usual. This course has a lot of it, and with the wind, it really was. You'd see cases where players were throwing shots that would just be instantly punished, or it would be pushed left so fast that the skip was way more than they were expecting, and then it's skip an OB. And so you have a bunch of cases where this OB is just very, very brutal. But also you have to pair it with the fact that I think that this course was one of the best in requiring players to golf, to make golf decisions. There was something that was really impressive to me about this course is that there were a lot of decisions to be made on a lot of the holes. How aggressive are you going to get? What are you going to try and accomplish? And Isaac stayed and played within his means every single hole. And that's why he won.
Listen, risk reward decision making was everywhere. And that's a credit to Leonard Muse as the course designer and what they've been able to do out here. And just enough variance in the course to make it interesting, like the alternate tees and pins. It does enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the hole, but it changes it enough to make it interesting. This is what I want more of. Now, look, there was plenty of talk this weekend about some of the struggles of knowing what was going on the coverage. And we had multiple people email and say, I was out there. It's so good in person. This is such a great course. It's totally major worthy. And I think the competitive side shows that. I still think DGN and the production team needs to really look closely at how they want to present golf course layouts.
Yeah.
Because when it's not clear where the fairways go and where the hole shape goes, because it's not carved through an obvious tunnel of trees, it can be very disorienting as a viewer, especially when you're on a very samey looking course that is mostly flat.
Yeah.
And it's not a requirement on all courses, but on this one it is. I still very much enjoyed the tournament, but it's definitely true that you'd see a shot, it would look pretty good. It would land somewhere out in the middle of a grass area. There'd be some trees around, and you'd be like, well, is that good or not?
Yeah.
Sometimes the commentators weren't even sure.
That's a problem.
I mean, but I don't blame them, because it's like hard to orient yourself on these camera shots without having like clear graphical analysis showing us like, where is this hole? Where did the discs land? And I do think this is something DGN needs to solve.
Yes. I need birdie zones, right? Like, I need birdie zones that like define birdie percentages from the previous round. Right. I need to know ideal landing zones, distances from those landing zones. I need to know if you're here versus there, what's the different shot that they're looking at. Like, those are the kind of things that need to be communicated both through the commentators, but also just visually in graphics, especially for these kind of courses.
Interesting note here. This is the lowest rated winner event rating at a major since last year's Champions Cup. Is there something about Champions Cup?
Well, the past 2 years Champions Cups have had weather that is not conducive to scoring, and compressed scores like that typically will drive down ratings.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like, look at the winning results over the last few years at the majors. Mostly stuff in the 1050s, low 1060s. So this is not like a huge aberration, but it does feel like perhaps a little bit that the wind causing people to make a lot of mistakes, like, punished in some cases, the strongest players more than the smartest golfers. And that's where I land after this weekend. Isaac Robinson obviously has the ability to execute. And by the way, this is on a forehand super friendly course. So the guy is absolutely killing it with the turnover game, which we know. This emphasizes that.
Right.
But when you look back at what he's done at 2024 Worlds, when he won for the second year in a row, he led the field in bogey rate at just 7%. At 2023 Worlds, he led the field in circle one in regulation and birdie rate. At the 2023 Champions Cup, he led the field in scramble rate at 92%.
That's crazy for someone who doesn't have a forehand.
And that's crazy on that course.
In W.R. Jackson, yes.
He had the fewest bogeys, just 2 on the weekend, and he led in circle one in regulation and park percentage. Now, makes sense. That was probably his most dominant major victory.
Yeah, 1 by 5.
He was amazing that weekend. So he did everything right. You know, he was birdieing the most and bogeying the least. But I guess my point is he has shown different ways to win on different styles of course, and he has been absolutely nails when it comes to showing up when it counts.
Yes.
Like, do you see him get nervous and make mistakes when he's in contention? No.
Never. He might be the most clutch player on tour right now.
So clutch.
He's so clutch.
He was clutch that whole final round.
Yeah.
You look at the final round, he doesn't have a bogey. He birdies 12, 13, 15, and 17. Probably could have birdied 18 if he wanted to, but he didn't. He was playing to the safe side of the green. And, you know, just was complete nails. Monster putts on 15 and even more so on 17 to give himself breathing room.
Yeah. Make sure you don't have a playoff.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, it misses the fairway only once. Like, Isaac is... You do not want to be playing against final round Isaac if you're hoping to win a tournament.
I don't think so. Anthony Barella put up a pretty good fight. He was a few holes ahead of Isaac, but got into the clubhouse at 25 down on total by birdieing 5 of the last 6. And, AB played quite well. It's just Isaac was that step better and never faltered down the stretch.
Yep. And to your point, like, Isaac just gets the benefit of knowing exactly what he needs to do.
Right.
And so, he knows he needs to make the putt on 17. He knows he doesn't need to play for birdie on 18, right? Like, it just changes the calculus
It's
so much.
more good golf.
Yeah.
I get so annoyed when I hear these players say, I never check the scores. It's like, well, why would you not check the scores? It's pretty important to know what the score is.
Yeah. Well, and here's one point though. Let me give you one counterpoint, right, Charlie?
Okay.
I still think you should be checking scores, but there are some courses that do not facilitate decision making.
Sure.
And so it's literally whether or not I'm up by 1 or down by 1, I have a shot that I need to throw, and it's not going to change based on what the score is. This course was not the case. And if you didn't check scores as you were coming down the stretch in this or throughout the final round, then you probably left strokes on the course, and it probably had an impact on your performance because there were decisions for you to be making.
I want to give some shout outs, and then we're gonna give out some early sheddies. First of all, Andrew Marweed finishes on the podium.
Sick.
Best finish ever at a major. His previous best was 15th. And I think he could have won this tournament. He was not terribly far off from doing so. You
saw a little bit of a crack in his putting that makes me wonder, can he put it together? Can he hold it together when the pressure is on? Because let's be real, Andrew Marweed isn't putting in the highest pressure moments very often. He is the best putter on tour, but he has a couple circle one misses and ones that we probably would have expected him to make. And so, that's something that I hope that Andrew Marweed's able to take from this weekend and ensure that if he finds himself in that position, that the putter doesn't fail him. Because if the putter like decreases even slightly for Andrew Marweed, like that's wraps. Like he's got to keep putting the way he does in order to win a tournament.
Hard to fault him for he was second in strokes gained putting this weekend, 89.47, just behind Matt Bell at 94.53. But you're right, he did miss a couple crucial putts in that final round.
Yes,
and it is just a little different when the pressure is maximum.
Right.
Love watching that guy putt though.
Oh man, and you're right. It is hard to fault someone who putts like that.
Other players finishing their best ever in a major and cashing. Adam Hammes, 5th place, previous best 9th. Same is true for Sullivan Tipton, who led this tournament through 3 rounds. Didn't quite have enough on that final day, but still a great weekend overall. Casey White, 12th place, improving on 14th. Andrew Miranda, Zach Nash, Jake Brown, 34th, and Connor Rock, 40th. So shout out to all those guys. We'll run down the FPO list in a little bit. But we got to talk about some negatives too. And we got to start with Macbeth, who put together a magnificent 14 under round 1, pretty much as good as it gets. I mean, what did it end up getting rated? 1097. I mean, this was just an unbelievable round. He opens it up with a bogey and then birdies 15 of the next 17 holes. And you're thinking, this is it, right? I mean, yes. I came in round 1 reax. We're talking about Macbeth's going to win this tournament. He's got the putt finally. And then he catches a bad break or two in round 2, goes on tilt and never gets it back. Never. In like round 3, he was like, okay, a little slow start, but then 4 birdies in a row. He's 4 down through 10, and then never birdies again. And
5 OBs in the back 9.
And then, he gave up at the end of the final round. So like, maybe you don't worry about the double bogey finish, but it's just not good enough mental resilience from a player that we know has it in him to bring it at that level. And this was just not championship stuff for Macbeth.
He's got to get something worked out because honestly, it's his mental game.
I agree with you 100%.
He has demonstrated in the past couple of weeks this season, he has all the tools left in his game
100%
to still win a tournament. He does not have the mental game to do it right now.
And it's hard to believe because you get so used to seeing him.
Insane.
But, ultimately 19 OBs. That's by far the worst of anybody inside the top 35 almost. He finishes in 20th place. And just, maybe you want to blame it on execution, but to me, I saw compounding mistakes. And you can't have that on the Pro Tour.
Sure can't. I mean, that's just way too many. And if we were to go take a quick look, I guarantee Paul had the most double bogey or worse numbers of anybody who was still even remotely in it.
He was at 6% double bogey rate. That is definitely the worst in the top 20. The next, you got to go down to Parker Welk at 28th, who was at 7%.
Yeah.
So yes,
there it is. There it is.
You're absolutely right.
Imagine you take all those and you make them into pars. So he's got 4 holes where he's giving up 2 or more strokes. You make those pars, that is at minimum 8 strokes. Paul McBeth is near the podium.
Yep.
You can't say that those compounding mistakes are mental issues. They are decision errors, not just execution errors.
Calvin Heimberg jumps 24 spots with a hot round in the final round to finish in 8th.
Really?
I was a sick round. 1083 rated. Bogey free, eagled 12. The problem, Josh, is that it's a Pyrrhic victory. It's a hollow hot round. It's what is it? It's like when you cook up some French fries and they're steaming hot and then you bite in and they're hollow, they don't have the fry inside, they're too crispy. I don't like it.
The meme with the guy who's got the medal and he's spraying the champagne and he's
yes,
that's Calvin fans every week. Every time Calvin does this, they're like, look at his great round. He shoots a hot round. This is so cool. Calvin's the GOAT. And then he's standing down at the bottom of the podium. I think, Charlie, I've heard you say the words, it was a sick round, to describe Calvin's hot or meaningless hot rounds multiple times. I just want a sticker that just says sick round, bro. And that's it.
It's frustrating because you know what he's capable of, and he just didn't show up early in the tournament. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch a guy who's as capable as he is not bring it. Especially at a course where you know that he can just dominate. And he showed you in the final round.
Yep.
It was like the inverse Macbeth.
Yeah. Well, and it's noteworthy. I mean, remember, Calvin has led at a major once in his career. And it was at European Open, the year that Corey Ellis won. And he had a stinker of a final round. Horrible, horrible final round. But otherwise, this is the Calvin story at majors. It's play yourself out of contention, shoot the best round of the tournament. But what he does.
Yep. Let's see. I think we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk Missy Gannon. We're going to talk Kristin Lätt and the foot fault. And we're going to break down hole 18, Pursewatch, picks. It's all coming up right here on the Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Well, the time is finally here. The brand new redesigned 2025 Octos are finishing up and shipping out now. The first stock colorway are the All Blacks, And the other 3 stock colorways of Octothorpe should be finishing up throughout the remainder of this month. Stock Octahulls are going to start shipping probably beginning of June. And even some of the first custom Octos are boxed up and out the door now. So go over to pounddiscgolf.com, check out the brand new Octothorpe and Octahull. Design your own custom bag of your dreams or pick a stock colorway. And hey, you can also go Royale with cheese and get all of the benefits and save more than $70. Welcome back to the Upshot. Josh, I got one more little note about Isaac for you before we get to FPO.
Okay.
Isaac is now, with 4 major wins, tied for 6th all-time in major victories. He is now matched Will Schustrick and Nate Doss.
I hear that gives him legendary status.
I mean, doesn't it?
Well,
I know people are joking about that because Doss has 4.
Right.
But
right.
Look at the list, right? Climo at 18, Macbeth still stuck at 17. Then it's I mean, those guys are in a league of their own.
Oh yeah, yes.
Then it's Feldberg with 7.
Okay.
Ricky with 6.
Okay.
Barry Schultz with 5.
Yeah.
Isaac, Schustrick, Doss with 4. Isaac Robinson has more major wins than Gannon Burr. He also has 2 worlds. Gannon has 0.
Yes.
At some point, we're going to start having to reckon with the fact that the majors matter more, as we all agree, Josh. And Isaac is quickly becoming one of the best players of this era. And at what point do we start to have the conversation about whether he's the best player of this era?
Yeah. It's.
I don't think we're quite there yet.
I don't either.
I'm still taking Gannon over him, but if Isaac wins another major this season and Gannon doesn't win any, then we're going to start having to talk about it.
Yeah. I think the going back to this idea of legendary. Honestly, Isaac. Remember when we talked about James Conrad winning Worlds in USDGC and the impact that was and how important that was. Isaac's there, right? Isaac is legendary. What was funny is that when he was at 3 majors, including 2 worlds, Doss said he was just good, and now he's legendary. So the man goes from 3 majors, including the back-to-back world championships, and is just a good player. But then as soon as he ties Doss, now he's legendary. It was hilarious. That was great. But no, I don't disagree that he is legendary, right? And that is, he probably has enough already. He does. He has enough that he should be in the Hall of Fame.
I got another one for you.
Oh no. Okay.
The hits just keep coming.
Okay.
Win percentage. Wins over major starts.
Okay.
The top 3, Climo, 32.7%. Macbeth, 30.9%. Isaac Robinson, 23.5%. Ahead of Gannon, ahead of Ricky, ahead of Feldberg, ahead of Schustrick. Isaac is now number 2 all time in major win earnings, $90,000. He is second to Macbeth at $127,895. Obviously, that's mostly an eras thing.
Yeah,
purses are a lot bigger than they were in Climo's day.
Right. I want to just circle back really fast to the Gannon Isaac comp, because there's one thing that I am there's one thing that is going to always make me hold off declaring a winner, especially in Isaac's favor. Isaac is 5 years older than Gannon.
Great point.
5 years.
It's easy to associate them as basically the same age because
they started
out.
playing.
Yeah.
Right? Isaac was in school. He was only playing a couple of events while he was in school. And so you're right. It is easy to associate them as the same. Gannon's got 5 more years of competitive disc golf over Isaac in terms of what's left in the tank. Hard to declare Isaac, put the crown on Isaac at any point when Gannon's got that time.
Yep.
So, all right. Should we talk some FPO?
Let's talk some FPO.
All right.
And I know everybody wants to get to the foot fault. I know. Literally, our Discord has been going nonstop about the foot fault for 36 hours now. I woke up this morning, I opened the Discord, and the Europeans had been battling it out overnight. While we were all our overnight, their morning and early afternoon. Oh my gosh. But we'll get there. I want to talk Missy first, though, Josh.
Yes, we should talk Missy first.
Second major win for Missy Gannon in less than a year. It's her second career win on the majors. It's her 9th career major or Elite Series victory. It is her best ever event rating, period, at 10-12. Wow. Her previous best was 10-08. And she famously lost to Kristin at World shooting, I think, 10-07.
Something like that, yeah.
And this is now the third highest rated FPO major performance in history of FPO, and it is the highest ever rated 4-round event.
So the other two were Worlds?
Presumably.
Has to be.
I could pull the list, but
no, I mean, yeah.
The thing that I think is critically important is that this is not, like, some people are going to make this out to be, oh, well, Kristin blew it or she got screwed. Or no. Missy was awesome this weekend.
Yeah. Missy was phenomenal. And like, could Kristin have won this event? Yes. Right. But the what if of like, of Kristin, you said, Charlie, in the rapid reax. So, I'll give you a chance to say it here, but if asked the question in the butterfly effect, get rid of the penalty on Kristin, do you think she catches Missy?
Nope.
Your answer was no.
Nope. People are trying to play back this, it changed everything. Well, I get trust me, I get the argument.
Right.
I definitely get the argument. But I think Missy was in control of that tournament and never let go. She was able to essentially, maybe not quite intentionally, but she had the leeway to just chuck it out of bounds on 18.
Correct.
In order to then lay up and take a bogey and still win by 2 strokes ultimately. So, okay, give Kristin the stroke back. Yep. It's still a layup. Like, you could still 2-stroke swing and go to a playoff. Missy was in control of this tournament, and I think she wins it regardless of the outcome of the foot fault.
Basically, what changes is Missy has to play 18 for par instead of bogey, or instead of whatever she wants.
Right.
If let's give,
I know it could change things. Like, there's momentum stuff that's going on there. I think Kristin let the call affect her game.
She did, absolutely.
But I still think that Missy wins.
And here's the thing. Kristin 4-putted on hole 8.
Yep.
Like, that's the problem. Kristin 4-putted on the easiest hole of the day.
Yep. It was understandably, because of Missy having gone out of bounds, Kristin was looking for a big punctuation mark, exclamation point, 2-shot swing, and she aggressively ran that putt on 8, kind of out of position from a knee, tried to laser beam it in there, didn't find metal, and was punished.
Yep.
And the thing is, it's like the fact that she ended up 4-putting is like basically unacceptable.
Yes.
Yeah. And the whole weekend, Kristin's putting was not good enough. Missy outputted Kristin by 7 strokes this weekend.
That's like, say it's the marshal's fault all you want, but like, Kristin putts a little better, and she could be winning this tournament.
But that's what I think it comes down to. Missy's level of consistency at a high level is, when she's on, she's basically unmatched. Now, Do I think that Kristin can outplay her when they're both playing their best? Of course.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, there's a reason that Missy's not rated 1,000.
Do I think, like, even not quite her best Kristin can outplay Missy? Yeah, I do. But when Missy is on, you can't be this sloppy.
That's right. That's right. Kristin goes 3 for 25 from Circle 2 this weekend.
Not good enough.
It simply isn't. And, you know, Missy overcame 3 more OB penalty strokes compared to Kristin. And, you know, wasn't as good from, you know, like tee to green. But had a higher birdie rate.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't double bogey ever. Matched Kristin in bogey percentage. This was just it was a complete win. And understandably, the focus has shifted to this call. But I think that if you play it out without the call, Missy wins the tournament at least 75% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably right.
So
here's the other thing I want to add to, Charlie.
Yeah.
Missy, Isaac feel like very similar players.
So true.
Right? Like the way that they approach courses, the kind of golfer that they are, the mentality and the locked in clutch factor that they have when they're leading.
Not flashy.
Not flashy.
Backhand focused.
Yeah, say kind of a one spin wonder. That they feel very, very, very similar. And so, you know, it makes sense when you see players who demonstrate that same level of game, similar game, winning on the same course together. That makes sense. Makes sense.
Missy Gannon is now 6-0 at major and Elite Series events when entering the final round tied for the lead or with the outright lead.
Dare I say, Charlie, unflappable?
She doesn't blink.
She doesn't.
And it's kind of crazy to hear that, right? Because we think, you would imagine that she would have lost to Kristin in these kinds of situations sometimes. She never has.
We've talked about this.
The only time she's lost to Kristin is when she's trailed. Or, I mean, presumably some of those events could be without Kristin in the field. So
right. But
keep that in mind. But, I mean, you go back through the list, right? I mean, did Missy have a share of the lead or the lead at MVP last year? Another time when she outdueled Kristin.
Mm-hmm.
What's their head-to-head right now? I'm sure it's still very heavily in Kristin's favor.
I'm sure. But while you're looking at that, Charlie, we have talked about this before, and I think this is true of both. And I don't have stats sitting in front of me, but my sense, and this is definitely for Missy for sure. Missy does not is not a much, at least doesn't feel like a much of a chaser, right? She plays better from the lead. I think the same is true of Kristin. Like Kristin plays better from a lead. She has, for all of her wins, and when Kristin doesn't come into the final round with an outright lead, I think, I mean, she does chase players down, but it's not. It reminds me specifically of like Silva, like Silva melting kind of thing, right? But like when another player is playing at the top of their game, like Kristin comes up short a lot, and maybe it's just because how often she puts herself in those positions. You know, maybe this is just
I think that's you're naturally going to lose a lot when you're this good.
That's probably
like lose close, right?
Right.
I just did the comparisons over on Statmando.
Okay.
There's no question that, you know, Kristin is the better player. She's 44-9 at Elite Series and Majors against Missy. However, Missy has 8 wins. I believe in a cursory look, that is the most of any player in the last 5 years. Paige Pierce has the equal amount, 8 wins lifetime against Kristin when they're together in a field. But remember that Paige was dominating at a time when Kristin was not yet really like a super relevant player on tour. So, I mean, it's certainly the case that Kristin is the better player, has the higher ceiling, is going to have the better career overall. All that is true. But Missy has been a formidable competitor when she has played well. Mm-hmm. She does not always bring it in the same way that Kristin tends to bring it. But when Missy is on, she's very tough to beat.
To answer your question, Missy did chase Kristin down at MVP last year.
She was trailing, right?
She was trailing by 3 in the final, or going into the final round, and then ends up winning by 2. So
impressive.
Yeah, it is.
So impressive.
Also Missy, just super cool. Like she's an excellent ambassador to the sport and a great personality on the sport.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Only 2 people in our entire picks competition picked Missy.
Yep.
Now, keep in mind, Missy only gets a 1x bonus because she was the top of the Pro Tour standings last year.
Correct.
So there's like almost a little bit of a negative incentive from that perspective.
Yeah.
But like with all these people, dozens of people making picks. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many people ultimately made picks, maybe 100. Can you believe that only 2 people picked Missy?
It does feel particularly low, but here's the other thing you got to add in. And I'll go double check the stats right now. If I asked you to pick a course where you expect Missy to struggle at the beginning of the season, would this not be the first course you would think of?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be expecting like low ceiling, forehand friendly, long distance bomber course to be like the obvious spot for Missy. No.
Let me ask you, where do you think Missy finished last year at OTB Open?
10th.
9th. Tied in a big log jam at 9th. So very good. Let me ask you this. How many strokes do you think she finished behind Ella?
12.
15.
Wow.
Ella was 25 under. Missy was 10 under. Even if you cut Ella out, who kind of went like sicko mode, and you leave Kat Merch in, Missy still finishes 8 strokes behind the leader.
I just think some players step up when it matters the most.
They do. And sometimes you forget about those players because it's not as showy week to week. A la Isaac Robinson, a la Missy Gannon.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Josh, let's get to it.
Okay, let's do it.
On hole 16, you've all seen the clip. A PDGA marshal on the lead card for FPO, calls Kristin for a foot fault late in the final round.
Yep.
As Kristin's plant foot slid in and clipped the back edge of her disc, milliseconds before she released her forehand. She was stroked by rule. It is not a reviewable call. It is not a seconded call by the card. It is a marshal.
Because a marshal called it.
Because a marshal called it. Kristin was absolutely steamed. And then took to Instagram after the tournament to vent even more after ultimately losing to Missy by a pair of strokes. Take a look if you're watching with us on YouTube. Kristin said, "It's not the first time I found myself at Champions Cup in a controversial situation involving the PDGA. 3 years ago, I was told mid-round that my daughter couldn't walk with me even though she'd been there from the start. This time, for the first time in my career, a marshal made a foot fault call independently without any input or complaint from my card mates." I will just pause and note that it is pretty crazy that this is the first time this has ever happened to Kristin. I understand the marshals are doing their job and trying to ensure fair play, which I truly respect, but consistency matters. If you apply rules like this, they should be applied equally to everyone on every card at all times. Of course, I would never want to gain an advantage unfairly, but the situation was strange. When I asked the marshal if he was 100% sure the disc was still in my hand when the marker disc moved, his answer was that he couldn't focus on two things at once and couldn't see, but he's still 100% comfortable giving me a penalty stroke. And so, et cetera, basically said that's a misunderstanding. You'd have to see both things, given, when such significant decisions are being made alone. No previous foot faults have been called in the round. Timing felt unfortunate. As far as I know, there were no other foot faults issued by PDGA marshals in the event. Despite some people have now been going and sleuthing around, there's a big Andrew Marweed stepped on his disc. Pretty obvious foot fault, wasn't called. And, I'm sure we could go through the tape and probably find some spots where people foot faulted and didn't get called. So, Josh, do you agree that the foot fault was a legitimate call from the sense that it was, in fact, a foot fault? Just baseline, was it a foot fault?
It's not obvious that it was.
but it was, right? I agree that it wasn't obvious in real time that it was, but if you look at the tape, it was a foot fault. I just want to make sure we all agree on her foot hit the disc before the disc was released.
Okay.
Not by much.
But then it's a football.
It was a football.
I never actually looked at the frame by frame that people were doing, and so I never saw it.
It was a foot fault. I just want to make sure that we all are on the understanding that it was in fact a foot fault.
Foot fault.
By the rules.
Okay, by the rules. Foot fault.
I know we talked about this in the rapid reacts, but we got to go over it here again, and we've had some time to think more about it.
It's fine.
What do you make of the call?
I'll give you the exact same answer I gave on the Discord. I am not going to play the game of, there were missed calls early in the tournament, like Andrew Marweed's, or that it was a close call and he might have gotten it wrong at the moment. Welcome to sports. Referees make calls all the time that are split second, close, probably could, 50-50 coin tosses could have gone either way. Calls are always going to be missed in sports. That's fine. I have no issues with that. Well, welcome to sports. And I will even say, I disagree with Kristin that it has to be perfectly and equally applied across the entire tournament. Because again, I think that is unsustainable. I want a marshal on final and top 3 cards to ensure things like pace of play. I want marshals that are showing up at cards that are having timing issues. If you get a foot fault called while you've got a marshal on you, then so be it. It's not going to be perfectly applied, and I don't have a problem with that. Here's my one. This is what I said on the rapid reacts, and this is the take that I the more I've thought about it, the more I stand by 100%. If this marshal has made other calls throughout the tournament, foot faults, time violations, courtesy warnings, you name it, whatever, I don't really care. If he made other calls throughout the tournament, then this is a perfectly legitimate and fine call to make. If this was the only call that he made all weekend long, then you need to swallow the whistle. You haven't called all weekend. You should not be calling this. It's not even that I want a perfect application of the rules. I just want to know that the marshal was actually making calls. That's it. That's it. If as long as that's the standard, as long as that is the case, then there's going to be human error. There's going to be imperfections. You do your best. But if he didn't make any calls until this call, imagine going an entire. Someone said, imagine going an entire game without calling a single penalty in soccer. And then the first little thing that happens right at the end when it's a close game, you throw up a red card and disqualify a player. Hockey, you don't call a single thing all game long. And then when you're they pull the goalie and then you blow the whistle and put him in the box for the last 2 minutes of the game. That's the level. If this is the only call that marshal made, that I have a real problem with. And it's why were you not doing this all tournament long? Why did you wait for just now? That's my stance though, in terms of whether or not this is a fine call.
I've seen a lot of bad faith arguments about this. I've seen people saying, well, she didn't gain an advantage. She didn't gain an advantage from... Okay, listen. Hold up. Okay. In golf, if you, let's say you're practice swing and you're like stepping up and you nudge your ball, stroke. Sorry. Like, it's the rules.
Yeah.
Did you gain an advantage by accidentally nudging your ball with your club? No, of course you didn't. Did you gain an advantage when, you slightly dragged your pivot foot in basketball trying to get out of a pressure double team? No, you probably didn't.
No.
But it's still a travel. Like, that is not an argument for not calling a foot fault. Josh, I think you clearly make the case for why this feels unfair. It's not that the call itself is wrong. And I think, like, if you want to get into, well, he shouldn't have called it if he wasn't 100% sure that she hit the disc, prior to releasing the forehand, because it was so close that I don't know that you'd be able to tell in real time, even if you had two eyes that you could split and watch the feet and the disc at exactly the same time.
Right.
So I think I think there's a case to be made that, if you're not more sure, that you shouldn't make that call. Ultimately, though, the guy got it right. So you can't really blame the official from a straight up like X's and O's. Is it the rule? Did he get the call right perspective? But the problem is, it's like, I feel like the marshals keep doing this. There's like no involvement from marshals throughout an entire major. And then in a critical moment in the final round, it's like, now I become the story because I make this call. And like, should it have been a time violation on Gannon at the European Open when he had a super difficult like shot to make and he went over 30 seconds? Sure. Yes. By the book, it was an infraction. He was warned. He wasn't stroked, by the way. He was warned. And I didn't love that, even though it had no impact on the event, because I don't want players to be singled out. And I don't want just like randomly, like, now you're going to apply all this scrutiny because it's the final round. Like, this is the thing that Kristin's complaining about too, that there's this lack of consistency in the call. And I think for me, this gets to a bigger thing. So there's like two elements here. It's like, one is, what do we really want the marshals to be doing? Because I've seen some people associated with the PDGA and the Pro Tour being like, everyone was saying we have to have marshals, so now we have marshals, and when they make calls, everybody bitches about it. Well, but not really, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think people do want marshals. I want marshals to be there to adjudicate on a situation where the players disagree, for instance.
Yep.
Or to issue a time warning appropriately throughout the entire event. And potentially even call foot faults if they're watching for them consistently. What I don't want to see is tournament altering calls only happening at the very end of the tournament with like the between the players at the very, very top. It just feels too intrusive into the competition, is really what it comes down to for me. Secondarily, it's like, do we need to change the rules about what a foot fault is? How the stance works? Because I understand the people who are saying it doesn't feel fair to give a foot fault for this kind of infraction. She didn't step on her disc. She didn't go past her mini. Like, she planted clean and just like slid forward due to the kind of like dirt patch that she was on. She maybe didn't put her weight in the right spot. I'm compelled by the idea that maybe it should be bigger than an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper behind your disc. Maybe it should be a bigger space so that you're not at risk of foot faulting in a spot where basically you're just slipping. Because unlike in golf, where you do really have control over when you decide to put the club to the ball, in disc golf it can be a little tricky to ensure that your stance doesn't slide forward. And you could say, well, then that, maybe you go to a standstill, but I don't know, there's just weird stuff happens because you're playing outside on roots and dirt and mud and this and that. And like, do we really want to stroke people for that? Should there be a warning first, like on a time violation? I think it's a tricky situation to get right, and the whole combination of things here made this feel like it took away from a competitive battle that it didn't need to, and nobody's going to be calling for a foot fault to be called there.
I want to answer your questions in reverse order, or talk about the subjects in reverse order. First, on the idea of foot faults, like if you get rid of kicking the disc, or like any or modify that, like that has to be like that's the easiest standard for a foot fault, is that you've kicked your disc. And
I completely agree.
I hear that you don't want to like sliding, but I'm sorry, like you have to control your plant well enough that you are not kicking your disc.
Yep, I think I'm okay with that.
I'm sorry, like so in any world, I don't see a way you can rewrite the rules to prevent this without completely changing the idea of like if you hit your disc, it's a foot fault. So that I don't have a problem with this as a foot fault by the technical definition of the rules. I want to go back to this idea of like, what do we want from marshals? I want marshals roaming the course, making calls all the way through rounds 1 through 3. And then I want them there to call the most egregious things on round 4. Because the problem is right now is that they've got it backwards to the way that every other sport behaves. Every other sport consistently calls and applies the rules throughout the entirety of the game. And then you get to fourth quarter or end of fourth quarter or end of third period, and the refs swallow the whistle.
Yeah, they call
right?
less late.
They call less.
They call
because
less
they want less
late.
of an impact. The point is that the marshals should be establishing a pattern of consistency of following the rules, right? Players should be recognizing from round 1, I need to make sure I am not like slipping and I have a solid plant. Otherwise, I will get stroked, right? I want players to recognize throughout the tournament, I have 30 seconds. And that is what I have. And then if in the final round, when there are big crowds, when you're in the most high pressure situations, and you choose not to make a call because players are in a tricky situation, and it's the last card, and pace of play is not really an issue, then yeah, you swallow the whistle there. I want the marshals to be creating a culture of consistency around the rules so that the final round doesn't need to be called as often, because players just already are assuming these rules are tight, they're enforced, and I need to follow them. And then when there's small slip-ups in the most critical moments that don't affect the outcome, like Kristin's foot fault, we don't call those. We just say, you know what, we've called consistently, but that one is so minute, it was so difficult to tell, we're just going to let this one play out unless Kristin gains a clear advantage.
And if Missy Gannon wants to call the foot fault, let Missy call the foot fault and then ask the marshal to make a final ruling.
Yes.
If Missy wants to call the foot fault and the marshal says, yep, that was a foot fault, now we can be talking about whether like we like the call from Missy rather than having it like it's in the hands of the players. Ultimately, this is a sport that's always been in the hands of the players. We really don't want marshals to be like involving themselves very suddenly into the tournament unless absolutely necessary, right?
Right.
And I get it. Like players simply just won't call stuff. So like, especially for timing, we need it to happen. And I'm honestly okay with if we decide collectively as a sport that we're going to have marshals out there calling foot faults.
Love it.
But it's not happening with any kind of regularity right now. So to have it happen in this spot at this late juncture of the tournament, it just feels like it's way too sudden to feel like it's fair.
Yeah.
I've seen some people being like, well, it was an accident. Why should she get faulted? It's like,
well,
I like this comment from Ariel in the Discord. I'm outraged that Kristin was called for an accident. I'm glad Andrew Marwood wasn't called for his. While we're at it, any shot that goes OB by accident should not be given a penalty stroke. It's not like they gained an advantage. The disc is in a worse spot. Good trolling.
Good trolling. Like, yeah. Man, I feel so bad for those offensive linemen who accidentally twitch and it's offsides. Like, we should just...
accidentally grab the face mask.
Yeah.
90% of the time it is an accident.
Yes. Like, in fact, when it's not an accident, that's when it's elevated to a higher standard of penalty in most sports. It's because it's assumed that 90% of the time players are trying to follow the rules. Oh my gosh. What a terrible take.
It's, I think people are looking for like rationalizations as to why they didn't like the call. so they're looking for like, well, it shouldn't have been called because it was an accident, or it was too close to call, or all of these other, oh, it shouldn't, that shouldn't be a foot fault when your foot slides forward and you slip. Ultimately, that's all just rationalizing what they actually don't like, which is that the official made themselves the story.
Yep.
And deprived us of an exciting finish. I also think Kristin just has a lot of fans who wanted to see her win.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Swallow the whistle. Swallow the whistle.
Yeah. That's the wrong time to be calling your first football of the weekend.
You want to see a good example? Go watch some playoff hockey. Like those last 5 minutes are nothing but street hockey. Like they don't call anything in the last 5 minutes of a playoff hockey game. I
mean, it's been happening in the NBA playoffs too.
Yeah,
there was in the Pistons Knicks series. They were not calling anything for most of that series.
And it's
the problem is that it's inconsistent with how it had been called all season.
Sure.
Now I'm with you. I would like less whistles in general in the playoffs, but I think like finding that balance is right. The problem is that we go through all these tournaments and there's no one ever calls a foot fault ever on anybody at any time. And then we get one on the whole 16 final round of a 4-round major, the first major of the year. Like, what? That's not the right time for that.
Yeah. It's okay. Like every time the major comes around, PDGA is like, we got to remind everyone who's in charge here.
Hello, this is Elaine.
You literally held your hand up. That's all I needed. Kristin should just stop playing Champions Cup. Just next year be like, nah, I'm good.
Oh my gosh, that would be funny, dude.
Wouldn't that be great?
All right, hole 18. What a hole. We don't always do a hole 18 review, but this top 3 hardest hole. Just a beautiful layout, a perfect risk reward balance. We'll throw it up the hole on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Josh, what do you like the most about this 18th?
Whew, that's a tough question. What do I like most? The safer you play your second shot, the more dangerous your putt is. Because what's interesting about it is that in most cases when you're trying to play that safe, like unless you're laying up, which like, yeah, you could play left. It's not perfect. It's not super easy to lay up every time, right? And just play left side of the green, like Isaac did. I mean, Missy, for example, was like, forget it. I'm just going to throw OB. I'm just going to make sure I get up there and then I'll lay up from the OB because I have strokes to play with. But like Isaac's shot is not 100% obvious in terms of like the difficulty level. Things can go wrong with that, especially in the wind. And so the thing that I think is interesting is like you want to go more aggressive at the pin, which makes your second shot harder because then you don't have to putt at the water, but then you might miss your second shot. So instead you play it a little bit safer and now you're looking at like a death putt into the water. Right. And now it's like, if you needed a birdie to win, for example, it's like, oh man, do I run this putt? Do I play the layup and take the par and go to a playoff? Like very interesting decision. The other thing though, and this isn't probably what I like best, but that I really, really enjoy, the level of aggression that you have on the first shot greatly determines the difficulty of your second shot. But there is OB that we see players find on that hole regularly. And so it is dangerous to get really, really aggressive with your first shot. It's a super well designed hole. It's so fun to watch.
This was one of our highest rated hole 18s back in 2023 when we were doing hole 18 reviews every week. We gave it a 7.5 in both MPO and FPO, and I think it's only gotten better, Josh.
I think so too.
We had a few holes higher. I think European Open, it was 10s across the board, understandably so. Fox Run got a higher score, but then not many other holes on tour that year outscored it. And I like it even more now. The way they've like tightened up the green a little bit, they've added that strip of inbounds area. So like it's like what did Sean call it? A progressive drop zone, depending on where you go OB.
Yeah.
I think it's like a super, and the tree that blocks the access to the green is super interesting because it forces you to either try to get out wide around it so you have the forehand approach, or do you want to be short of it a little bit so you can throw the backhand out there. The low branches makes it super scary. I think, was it AB? He threw a beautiful forehand approach on 18 that he had to keep super low and pretty straight and not skip. That's what I want to see. I want to see players asked to make a really tough shot if they want to get a birdie. Yes. And this hole accomplishes that in a great way while providing plenty of opportunity for multi-stroke swings.
Tons of fun. It's such a good hole. It's such a good hole. And the course looked really nice this weekend. Like it looked beautiful. And that was the case of hole 18 as well. And so, this is definitely elevating in level in terms of the quality of a hole 18, without a doubt.
Yep. All right, Pursewatch. Let's run it down.
All right, what do we got?
Champions Cup, MPO payout, $90,625, FPO payout, $54,375. Those are easily the high watermarks for the year. $145,000 total purse. Just under 50,000 more than the previous high at Open at Austin. $906 per player. Not surprisingly, also the highest of the season so far. $16K to Isaac Robinson, $11K to Big Money Missy, who was rocking money earrings in the final round, which is just awesome.
That is the swagger.
Same exact purse as last year. $145K.
Fine. It's a good number.
Don't see that needing to change right now, given where the sport is.
Yeah. I mean, would I have liked someone to kick in $5,000 so we could just make it $150,000 flat? Yes, but I'm not going to complain too much about it.
What else we got?
Got picks?
Picks review, yes.
Maybe we don't talk about picks.
I got 7 points in MPO. It was double points for the major. I scored points for all my players, Calvin, Ricky, and Gannon. None of them, of course, podiumed, though. All top 10. So kind of mediocre, all things considered. Josh ends up with a 1-pointer. Gannon was offset by Ezra Robinson below 32, so a negative point there from Ezra. We both scored 9 points in FPO. We had the exact same picks. Kristin did pretty well for us. Holland did okay, and Ella Hansen was a minus. Over in the overall picks, Josh, some pretty awesome picks this week. In FPO, the top scorer was Dubcon. I feel like I've said Dubcon's name already this season. Katrina, Anniken Sten, and Kristin. So 5 pointers for Anniken and Kat doubled.
That's
to score
sick.
27.5 points on the week.
That's sick.
Yeah, that's huge. I feel like I keep forgetting that I should be like hunting for this 5x value. Like Katrina and Cadence Burge feel like they need to be under consideration every week.
I've picked Katrina a couple times and she hasn't gotten me anything.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, it is. It is.
In MPO, a tie between Lillian and Just Mike. They both got 24 points with identical picks, Barella, Heimberg, Robinson. So they get the big 12.5 points from Robinson, a 9-pointer from AB, and 2.5 from Calvin.
You ready for this, Charlie? Drooper, who's at the top of the leaderboard still. Guess who he had in MPO?
I don't know.
Sullivan Tipton.
Wow.
10 points for calling his shot on Sullivan.
Love that.
Yeah.
How about that pick out of nowhere?
Right?
Has never, I'm looking through his picks, never taken Sullivan before this point in the season. Calvin, Gannon, Sullivan. I love it.
Love it.
Yeah, so Drooper still out in front, 5-point lead on Dubcon and Danny. So you can make your own picks right alongside me and Josh. Josh and I are tied in 61st place right now. Just foul. To be clear, I won this last year, and I am now getting dogged. So we'll see what we can do later this season. That's going to do it for today's show. Reminder, join the Pound giveaway. I'm going to ask you to go back and listen to our previous episode if you want to know what I'm talking about. Pound Disc Golf giving away a Octo Royale with cheese. So you get the whole shebang, all the accessories. Listen to our previous episode, the Round 1 Reax from Champions Cup, to find out how to enter. And we're going to close the drawing on Thursday. So we will make the draw Thursday morning. And so get your entries in by Wednesday at midnight, please. That is going to do it for this edition of the Upshot. We've got some awesome interviews coming up over the next couple of weeks. And let us know if you have any thoughts or feedback on anything. If you got football concepts that you want us to talk about, we might get to some mailbag about that. Email us upshot@ultiworld.com. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on the Upshot.